Hello there. This is All 24 News World News Program live from Algiers. I'm Karim Zachary, and these are tonight's top stories. Tonight, 75 were killed in Gaza aid center attacks. UN's Guterres urges probe, and Hamas says it's ready for ceasefire talks. Details just ahead. Next up, in Morocco, groups warn of Zionist plot to divide the country, and anger grows over tent evictions and neglect of Al-Hous quake victims. Coming up as well, Sahrawi Republic rejects Morocco's colonial farce, backs UN-led solution, and urges the UK to back peace process. We'll have full details on these developments shortly. Also in tonight's headlines, in Eastern Europe, ceasefire talks stall. Russia offers partial truce as Ukraine demands full stop and accuses Moscow of stalling. Stay tuned, full details coming right up. Hello again and welcome back to the program. In our news tonight, the Palestinian Ministry of Health in Gaza says at least 75 people were killed and 400 others were wounded in massacres targeting humanitarian aid centers. In the past 24 hours alone, hospitals received the bodies of 52 more victims and 503 injured. Since March 18th, that brings the toll of the renewed offensive or Zionist offensive to 4,201 dead and over 12,600 wounded. Overall, the ministry reports a staggering 54,470 deaths and more than 124,600 wounded since the genocidal war began. Meanwhile, Palestinian media report that occupation forces opened fire near an aid center in Rafah in southern Gaza, killing at least 5 Palestinians and wounding 35 others. The incident occurred near an American aid distribution site in the city's west. It's the latest in a string of deadly episodes as civilians continue to gather for desperately needed humanitarian assistance amid the ongoing genocidal war.
America and Israel tell us to go get some food, water and aid. And when the aid arrives, they shoot at us. Is that justice? Yes, they died. People died. They go to get a piece of bread and they died. They came back as bodies. 35 martyrs arrived at the hospital yesterday just for trying to get a bite of food. There is no food, no water. I swear to God, people can't find anything to eat. It's catastrophic. The desperate go to get food and they die. I'm telling you, people had a glimmer of hope when the aid was announced. But we were shocked people died after that. They were killed. Just why? They went peacefully. A father goes to bring food for his children and he dies like that.
And in the same context, surgeons at Nasser Medical Hospital in Khan Yunis worked non-stop on Sunday, treating victims of a deadly shooting near an aid distribution center in Gaza. Health officials and witnesses say at least 31 people were killed and more than 170 wounded as they tried to reach desperately needed supplies. Here's the report by Zahra Ferjanina.
Urgency chokes Nasser Hospital. Surgeons are moving around frantically under the harsh glow of surgical lights, racing against time. Every second matters. Another motionless victim. All day the wounded flood in, punished for the desperate act of seeking food for their children.
Been here 1 week as part of a month in Gaza, Nasser Hospital. Today has to be the worst day in these last 7 days which I've experienced. This morning the day started at 7:45 a.m. and there was a mass casualty alert which went off and we rushed to theatre. We've already completed 2 laparotomies. It's just after midday at the moment.
Doctors are horrified as most wounds were deliberate gunshots to chests, abdomens and heads. Surgeons now battle to extract bullets and save lives, one complex operation at a time.
The injuries range from gunshot wounds, the most common the rocket shrapnel. Most of the shots were aimed at the upper torso, abdomen and chest. So far we've conducted over 30 emergency surgeries. The majority of the injured were young men, children and women.
We had gone out in search of flour and food. We were caught off guard. Before we even reached Muawiyah Mosque, warplane began firing directly at the crowd.
The conclusion is grim and unequivocal. For these doctors, the Rafah operation appears to have had only one objective: to inflict the highest possible number of casualties among Palestinians, civilians who had already endured 2 months of total siege and hunger. This incident is now considered the deadliest to date under the newly implemented and widely criticized humanitarian aid distribution system, which has been in place for less than a week.
On a related note, the Euro-Mediterranean Human Rights Monitor says a video released by Israeli forces to deflect blame for the Rafah massacre has backfired, calling it a scandal. In a statement, the group dismissed the footage as a part of a misleading campaign to deny responsibility. It says Palestinians came under direct gunfire as they tried to collect aid, contradicting the occupation narrative and raising new questions about the incident.
The video released by the occupation to deny its responsibility for the Rafah massacre backfired and turned into a scandal. The footage is actually related to a robbery carried out by a gang supported by Israel in Khan Yunis, not in Rafah. In the video, Palestinians were attempting to retrieve stolen aid when the gang opened fire on them, all under the surveillance of an Israeli drone. The video, which showed the Israeli army published to evade responsibility for the Rafah massacre, ended up revealing another crime: the protection and sponsorship of looting gangs.
And in another reaction to the massacre, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres says he is deeply shocked by reports of Palestinians killed and wounded while trying to access aid in Gaza. In a statement on Monday, Guterres called for an immediate and independent investigation into the deaths of at least 31 people at a food aid distribution center. He also demanded accountability for those responsible as the humanitarian crisis in Gaza continues to escalate.
I'm deeply disturbed by reports of Palestinians being killed and injured while trying to access aid in Gaza. It's unacceptable that Palestinians have to risk their lives just to get food. I call on an immediate and independent investigation into these incidents and for those responsible to be held accountable.
And all this came as Gaza saw another deadly day. Occupation airstrikes killed dozens of Palestinians across the Strip, including 16 members of the Al-Baraj family, among them 6 children, after their home in Jabalia was bombed. Strikes also hit Gaza City, Khan Yunis, and Deir el-Bala, targeting homes, aid seekers, and even a school sheltering displaced people. In total, over 50 people were killed, with many more wounded.
There are many martyrs. A shrapnel from the missile even reached our home. I lost my son when the strike happened. I ran out like a madman searching for him. My house is only 100 meters away from our neighbors who were hit. There are victims who were completely burned, women and children among them. What was their fault? They were innocent civilians. Among the victims were children and women. They were just in the courtyard of the house when suddenly the bombing struck and burned everything. Their body parts scattered, so disfigured that you can't even identify who they belonged to.
In a related development in Gaza still, on Sunday night, occupation forces blew up Gaza's only kidney dialysis hospital in the north, the Noura al-Kabi facility, according to the Palestinian Ministry of Health. The ministry condemned the systematic campaign to wipe out medical infrastructure there. Officials say dozens of kidney failure patients relied on the center and that 41% of such patients have already died due to a lack of care and access amid the ongoing genocidal war. For its part, the Palestinian group Hamas says it's ready to begin indirect talks aimed at reaching a permanent ceasefire in Gaza. In a statement on Sunday, the group expressed willingness to start negotiations immediately, seeing a deal that would bring relief to Palestinians and the humanitarian crisis and secure a full withdrawal of occupation forces from the Strip. All the way to North Africa now. On Sunday evening, protests erupted across several Moroccan cities against the government's ongoing normalization of ties with the Zionist entity. In Tangier, hundreds marched through the streets, chanting slogans condemning the deal as a betrayal of both the nation and the Palestinian people, who continue to suffer from heinous massacres by Zionist forces. Meanwhile, the anti-normalization activists in Morocco say there is a Zionist plan to divide the country into multiple entities. Speaking at a solidarity rally in Safi Sunday, Ahmed Wiham, a head of the Moroccan Observatory Against Normalization, warned that the plan is now openly discussed by Israeli officials. He called on Moroccans to unite and resist the horrific attempt to partition the nation. In Morocco still, the Federation of the Democratic Left in Morocco has slammed what it calls selective rehousing practices for families hit by the recent earthquake in Al Haus region. During a visit, parliamentarian Fatima Zahra Tamani criticized significant and unfair disparities in aid distribution. She also warned that authorities are issuing evacuation orders and those who resist face eviction by public force.
In the area known as Tel Yaqub and some of the nearby villages, we heard about many ongoing hardships. While we were expecting more than a year and a half after the Al Haus earthquake that the problem would have been resolved through reconstruction efforts and measures to alleviate the suffering of victims and those affected, we instead discovered upon our arrival a reality marked by selectivity and double standards. Some families living under one roof were granted multiple houses simply because they had closer ties to the authorities.
Regionally still, shifting focus to the Western Sahara issue now, the Sahrawi Foreign Ministry says the only viable solution to the Western Sahara conflict is the joint UN-African settlement plan. In a statement Sunday evening, the ministry emphasized that no international nor regional bodies recognize Morocco's claim of sovereignty over the disputed territory.
The Sahrawi Foreign Ministry affirms that no international or regional body recognizes Moroccan sovereignty over Western Sahara. It emphasizes that the only viable solution is the UN-African Union settlement plan, accepted by both Polisario and Morocco in 1988 and endorsed by the UN in 1990 and 1991.
The Sahrawi Foreign Ministry called Morocco's autonomy plan a farce designed to legitimize occupation. The ministry said encouraging both parties to engage in the UN peace process while backing this proposal only enables Moroccan intransigence, which it blames for the current stalemate. It also expressed regret over the UK's recent stance, urging the Security Council member to support a genuine peace process.
The Sahrawi Ministry of Foreign Affairs reaffirms that the proposal promoted by the occupying Moroccan state is nothing but a farce and colonial ploy aimed at legitimizing its illegal occupation of Western Sahara, denying the Sahrawi people their inalienable right to self-determination and independence. The Sahrawi Foreign Ministry hopes the United Kingdom will use its influence to support a serious UN-led peace process in Western Sahara that allows the Sahrawi people to freely and democratically exercise their inalienable right to self-determination and independence, without military or administrative constraints.
Elsewhere, but in Africa still, for over 3 years of violent conflict in Sudan, children are facing a devastating humanitarian crisis. Millions of them are deprived of education and battling severe malnutrition, struggling daily just to survive. Salman Asib tells us more.
After 3 years of conflict, Sudan is facing one of the world's most severe humanitarian crises. The children endure the brutal weight of the war amidst collapsed systems and violence. Millions of these kids are stripped of schools, doctors had enough food, thrust into a fight for survival the world cannot ignore.
Before the war, we had 7 million children out of school. Since the war, we have 17 million children who are not in schools. Again, if we look at the data before the war, we knew that around 3 million children are acutely malnourished. Now, since the war, almost close to 4 million children acutely malnourished.
Countless Sudanese children aren't just victims, they're forced into the battlefield to fight in a war that stole their childhood. While some die in combat, others vanish. They're kidnapped and dragged into captivity. Only a precious few ever make it home.
We verified tens of cases of children who were forced by the RSF to join the conflict. Some of them have returned to their families and some were killed in the conflict. Many were kidnapped. The scale of the violence is large and scary. We need huge collaboration in order to prevent a bigger crisis.
International peace efforts stall as Sudan's conflict deepens, ensnaring children in ceaseless brutality, violence, displacement, and hunger. Stripped of education, healthcare, and protection, their childhood crumbles and their future bleeds away. Still, many hold into the dream of playing in schoolyards and going back to classrooms. For peace, dreams only global intervention can rescue before it's too late.
In other topical news, the second round of peace talks between Russia and Ukraine kicked off in Istanbul, but ended with no major breakthroughs after more than an hour. Discussions focused on a ceasefire and prisoner exchanges. Ankara called the talks not negative, but Ukraine says Russia rejected its offer for an unconditional ceasefire. Meanwhile, Moscow proposed a partial ceasefire lasting 2 to 3 days. The details with Yassine Riktino.
Another diplomatic deadlock. The second Russia-Ukraine peace talks in Istanbul, mediated by Turkey, ended Monday without breakthroughs. While Ankara called discussions constructive, Kyiv accused Moscow of flatly rejecting its unconditional ceasefire proposal.
Esteemed participants, in today's meeting, we aim to continue evaluate the conditions and perspectives of the two countries regarding the ceasefire. At the same time, we aim to take the process of exchanging prisoners of war one step further with humanitarian considerations. We also plan to discuss the necessary preparations for the leaders' meeting. Our basic expectation is that the talks are productive, concrete progress is achieved in the shortest time, and the desired result is achieved.
President Volodymyr Zelensky confirmed the start of negotiations on a new prisoner exchange and warned that if Russia uses the talks for delay, global pressure must increase. He called for a new joint G7-level sanctions, emphasizing that all peace-seeking nations must support this approach.
Talks in Istanbul just ended and I'm waiting for the Minister of Mir full report. They exchanged documents through the Turkish side, and we are preparing a new release of prisoners of the war. Today we see the situation clearly. If Russia turns the Istanbul meeting into an empty talk, there must be a new level of pressure, new sanctions, and not just from Europe. We need to work on joint sanctions at the G7 level, including with the United States and with everyone in the world who wants peace.
On the other side, and while offering a limited ceasefire in select areas, Russia attached a stark precondition. Ukraine must fully withdraw its military from the occupied territories of Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhia and Kherson before a 30-day pause could begin. Russian president advisors said that a detailed memorandum has been submitted addressing 3 key long-term objectives and outlining steps toward a comprehensive ceasefire.
We have submitted to the relevant side status memorandum concerning the 3,000. The first part addresses how to achieve 3 of the long-term objectives. The second part outlines the necessary steps to reach a comprehensive ceasefire, though there are some differences between the two councils. In addition, a number of practical issues have been resolved. We have identified all the bodies and conducted DNA tests to confirm their identities. We will hand over these bodies to primary group in an organized and responsible manner.
Despite the deadlock, Turkey's Erdogan pushed for a high-stakes peace summit.
I would like to bring together both Mr. Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in Istanbul or Ankara, and even take Mr. US President Donald Trump with them. If they accept, of course, I would like to come together with them in this meeting and thus turn Istanbul into a peace center. We will take steps towards this after this last meeting.
Indeed, diplomatic gridlock elevates Erdogan's summit plan, now a critical test for reviving Ukraine peace talks, a final attempt to bring Putin, Zelensky and Trump to the table and probably reignite momentum for peace in the region.
Meanwhile, on the ground, the Ukraine Security Council says at least 13 Russian aircraft were destroyed or damaged in Sunday's drone attack on Russian air bases, an operation praised by President Zelensky as magnificent after 18 months of planning. Kiev insists only military targets were hit. Russia responded with its own strike on Ukrainian drone facilities and claims to have shut down 2 British-made missiles, 4 US-guided bombs, and over 300 drones, including many outside the current conflict zone.
I can say with certainty that this is an absolutely unique operation. What's most interesting, and this can now be stated publicly, is that the office of our operation on Russian territory was located directly next to FSB headquarters in one of their regions. In total, 117 drones were used in the operation, with a corresponding number of drone operators involved.
And now it's time to catch up on other news stories making headlines with Yasin Erikti in the News in Brief.
More than 30 Malian soldiers were killed on Sunday in a terrorist attack on military base in Bolkisi, near the Burkina Faso border. The Al-Qaeda-linked group Jenim claimed responsibility and reportedly seized the base. Iran's foreign minister said on Monday there will be no new nuclear deal if it restricts the country's peaceful activities, insisting Iran has nothing to hide amid calls for more transparency. A Tunisian man was shot dead and Turkish man injured by neighbors in southern France. Authorities are treating it a possible hate crime amid rising racism in the country. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer announced a £15 billion plan to develop sovereign nuclear warheads as part of a broader military overhaul. Speaking in Scotland, he said the move aims to boost UK's combat readiness amid rising global threats.
And that was Sofian Kinturi reporting, not Yasin, excuse me for that. And finally, to a lighter note, few outside Russia know the Chechen Republic well. Well, it is a region reshaping its image, from new mosques and modern architecture to a focus on security and tourism. Chechnya is moving beyond its tragic past toward a changing future. Our own Miriam Zian reports from Grozny.
This is Grozny, the capital of the Chechen Republic, a federal subject of Russia, located in the North Caucasus. Once destroyed by wars, the city has been completely rebuilt and now stands as a symbol of resilience and renewal. With a population of 1.5 million, Chechnya is predominantly Muslim and home to the largest mosque in Europe and Russia. The pride of Muslims, named after the Prophet Muhammad. In just 2 decades, the Republic has built more than 1,300 mosques, a clear reflection of its people's religious identity and conservative values. Hospitality holds a sacred place in Chechen culture. Locals say a guest is a gift from God, so visitors are well fed and welcomed. Breathtaking natural landscapes are attracting more and more tourists, an opportunity the local government is willing to develop. For years, this Caucasian republic has suffered from extremism and terrorism. Today, it is actively working to prevent any resurgence of such threats, with efforts focused on stability and security. Another key pillar of Chechnya's transformation is military training, as we find one of the largest and most advanced military training centers in the world located in Gudemes. This year, the Russian Special Forces University has trained 21,500 people and sent them to take part in the special military operation in Ukraine, highlighting the area's strategic importance and ongoing contributions to national security. After years of war, Chechnya is now looking outward, focusing on reconstruction, economic development, and strengthening ties with the broader Muslim and Arab world.
And with this, we reach the end of our news for tonight. For more updates, you can always visit our social media platforms as well as our website. I'm Karim Zachary on behalf of all 24 News team. Thank you for tuning in. Till next time, take care.